20 years ago, he saved a dying lion cub. Today, that same lion is walking toward him through the mist. The sun had barely risen over the Namiri Plains when the miracle began. A low mist rolled across the golden grass, glimmering with dew like scattered diamonds. The morning wind carried the distant cries of birds greeting the dawn, but among them was a sound far older, far deeper. A lion's roar. It wasn't a roar of warning or hunger. It was something softer, almost searching. And sitting in a wheelchair just a few yards away, an old man lifted his head. His name was Samuel Hayes, and his eyes, once sharp and fearless, now trembled with tears. Before him, emerging through the drifting mist like a dream made real, was a massive lion. His mane shimmered bronze in the sunlight, his movements deliberate, graceful, ancient. There was no cage, no barrier, no weapon between them, only memory. And as the lion drew near, the world itself seemed to hold its breath. There was a time when Samuel Hayes was not confined to wheels and silence. He had been the heartbeat of the plains, a man of the wild, trusted by rangers, feared by poachers, and respected by the animals themselves. Back then, the Namiri Plains were his home, his calling, his entire world. He could read the land like a book, every track in the dust, every distant cry of a hornbill. Every shift of wind carried meaning. He wasn't just a ranger. He was a bridge between man and nature. Hayes doesn't walk these plains, his partner once joked. The plains walk with him. Samuel would laugh, wipe the sweat from his brow and say, "You don't protect the wild by fear. You protect it by love." And that love would one day cost him everything. It was the dry season, the air shimmering with heat, the earth cracked and thirsty. Samuel and his patrol were returning to base when he heard it. A faint, desperate cry echoing through the canyon nearby. He raised a hand to halt the group. "You hear that?" One of the younger rangers frowned. Probably a jackal, but Samuel knew better. He recognized that sound, small, rhythmic, terrified. "A cub," he whispered. He followed it through the dust until he reached a narrow ravine. The sound grew louder, sharper, and then he saw it. A tiny lion cub, no bigger than a house cat, trapped on a crumbling ledge halfway down the rocky slope. Its paws scrabbled helplessly against the stone, its golden fur streaked with mud and blood. The mother was nowhere in sight. Samuel's stomach clenched. A cub alone was a death sentence. The slope was steep, the sand unstable. One wrong move and he'd be tumbling into the ravine. "Hayes, don't even think about it," his partner warned. "We'll lose you both." Samuel's eyes stayed locked on the cub. "If I don't go, we lose him for sure." He grabbed a rope from the truck and looped it around a sturdy tree trunk. "Easy, little one," he murmured as he lowered himself over the edge. His boots kicked loose dirt. The cub cried louder. Sweat ran down his temples, blurring his vision. His hands gripped the rope until his knuckles turned white. He was close now, just one more stretch. The cub looked up at him, frightened, trembling, but somehow trusting. "Come here, baby," he whispered, voice shaking. "You're safe now." He reached out, fingers brushing its scruff, and then the earth shifted. A deafening crack split the air. The ledge beneath him gave way. Samuel had 1 second to react. He swung his arm and hurled the cub upward, praying it would land safely. He didn't even see it reach the top, because in the next instant the world vanished beneath him. He fell. Rocks, dust, pain, silence. When the team reached him, they found the cub alive, trembling in the grass. But Samuel lay crushed at the bottom, his legs twisted beneath fallen stone. He was still breathing, barely. Samuel survived, but the cost was unbearable. Both legs shattered beyond repair, his body scarred, his spirit almost broken. For months he lay in a hospital bed staring at white ceilings, replaying that moment again and again. The cub's cry, the fall, the sound of shattering bone. The doctors called it a miracle that he lived. Samuel called it a sentence. When he finally returned home, he was a man divided. His heart still in the wild, his body trapped in stillness. Friends visited less and less. The reserve moved on without him. New rangers took his post, new faces filled his world, but none understood the silence he carried inside. Every night as he sat by his window listening to the sea, he imagined that little lion somewhere out there, grown, strong, wild. He wondered if it ever remembered the man who saved its life. And sometimes when the wind blew through the open window just right, he swore he could hear a faint roar in the distance. a sound that made his chest ache with both pain and hope. Time, they say, erases all things, but some bonds defy time itself. On a quiet morning, Samuel's phone rang. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, gentle, female, accented with warmth. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Dr. Miriam Cole. I'm a wildlife veterinarian at Namiri Plains Sanctuary." Samuel straightened slightly. "Namiri Plains?" "Yes," she continued. "We've been working with a lion here, a big male about 12 years old. We call him Kivu. There's something unusual about him. I think he might be connected to you." Samuel frowned. "Connected to me? How?" Miriam hesitated. "He has an old scar on his shoulder. Deep. The kind you'd see from falling rocks. He was rescued as a cub, right around the time of your accident. We believe he's the same lion you saved." Samuel felt his throat tighten. His hands trembled as he held the phone. "That's impossible," he whispered. "He'd never remember." Miriam's voice softened. "Maybe. But every time an older ranger passes near his enclosure, someone wearing the old field scent, the canvas jackets from your era, he becomes calm, gentle, like he's waiting for someone." For the first time in years, Samuel's heart stirred with something long forgotten. "Hope, Mr. Hayes," Miriam said quietly. "If you're able to travel, I think he'd want to see you." The journey back to Namiri Plains was not easy. Every bump of the dirt road sent pain through his legs. Every gust of hot wind brought memories rushing back. The smell of the grass, the distant rumble of elephants, the echo of his own laughter carried through time. When the car finally stopped at the sanctuary gate, Samuel could barely speak. The land stretched endlessly before him, waves of golden grass bending under the morning breeze. The sky, vast and wild, seemed to welcome him home. Dr. Miriam met him there, smiling kindly. "Welcome back, Ranger Hayes." He chuckled softly. "Haven't heard that name in 20 years. They drove deeper into the reserve, stopping near a wide enclosure bordered by a natural ridge. Beyond the fence, the grass swayed like the ocean. "He's out there," Miriam said softly. "We usually keep distance, but something tells me today will be different." Samuel wheeled himself closer to the viewing platform. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest. For a long time there was only silence, wind, birds, and the creak of his wheelchair. Then the grass parted, and out stepped a lion. Kivu was magnificent, taller than Samuel expected, his mane thick and glowing in the sunlight. But what struck him most were the eyes. Amber gold, calm, knowing. The lion stopped when he saw the wheelchair. The rangers nearby stiffened, hands resting on tranquilizer rifles. But Samuel raised a trembling hand. "Don't," he whispered. "Let him come." Kivu's gaze never left the old man. Slowly, step by step, he began to approach. The air grew heavy, electric. Even the birds fell silent. 10 feet. 5. 3. Then Kivu stopped. Samuel's breath hitched. Tears welled in his eyes. He couldn't find words. For a heartbeat, they just looked at each other. Man and beast. Two souls joined by a forgotten moment from long ago. Then Kivu did something that froze every ranger in place. He lifted one massive paw and set it gently on Samuel's knee. The claws stayed hidden. The touch was soft and deliberate. A single tear slid down Samuel's cheek. "It's you," he whispered, voice trembling. "You remember?" Kivu's chest rumbled, a low, gentle sound that wasn't quite a growl, more like the echo of a purr. Samuel reached out with a shaking hand and brushed his fingers through the lion's mane. It was coarse, warm, alive. For a moment, time folded in on itself. 20 years vanished, and there were only two beings who had once saved each other's lives. From that day on, Kivu refused to leave Samuel's side. He followed the wheelchair as it rolled along the dirt path, stopping whenever Samuel paused, sitting quietly in the shade beside him like a sentinel. At night, Kivu would lie near the gate of his enclosure, his eyes glowing in the moonlight facing the cabin where Samuel slept. The staff began calling him the guardian of the old ranger. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Samuel asked Miriam, "Do you think he really knows me?" She smiled. "I think animals remember kindness the way we remember faces. You gave him life, and he never forgot what it felt like." Samuel looked at Kivu resting under a tree. "Then maybe I wasn't meant to walk the plains forever. Maybe I was meant to leave a piece of myself here." 3 days later, It was time for him to return home. The rangers gathered quietly as Samuel wheeled himself toward the truck. Kivu followed him all the way to the gate, his massive paws leaving prints in the dust. Samuel turned one last time. "Come here, boy," he whispered. Kivu approached, lowering his head until his mane brushed Samuel's lap. Samuel placed both hands on the lion's face, his voice barely a breath. "Thank you for remembering me." Kivu let out a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the ground, a sound of peace, of recognition, of love beyond words. As the truck drove away, Kivu stood motionless, eyes following until the dust swallowed the road. He didn't roar. He didn't move. He simply waited, like a guardian carved from golden memory. Weeks later, the sanctuary released a short clip of the encounter, the lion resting his paw on an old man's knee. It spread across the internet like wildfire. Millions watched, millions cried. But what the world saw as a miracle, Samuel saw as something simpler, a promise fulfilled. 2 years later, Samuel passed away peacefully in his sleep, facing the sea he loved. In his will, he requested his ashes be scattered at Namiri Plains, the place where his heart still roamed. And so they did. Beneath a wide acacia tree, the staff placed a small plaque. For Samuel Hayes, who showed the wild what kindness means. For days afterward, Kivu lay beneath that tree, motionless. He didn't eat, didn't move. Only when the wind shifted and the sky began to rain did he rise, lift his head and let out a long, echoing roar that rolled across the plains like thunder. Those who heard it swore it wasn't a roar of sorrow. It was a farewell. And as the clouds parted and sunlight touched the land once more, it felt as if the wild itself bowed its head in remembrance of the man who loved it most. Years have passed since that day. Tourists still visit the sanctuary, and some say that if you stand quietly by the old acacia tree at dawn, you can see a lion sitting there, still calm, his eyes turned toward the horizon. He is old now, his mane streaked with silver, but when the wind stirs and the morning light spills over the plains, it almost looks like he's waiting for someone, waiting for the man who taught him that even in a world of wildness and fear, love can leave a mark that never fades. Because sometimes, the wild remembers us too. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there in the heart of the wild, love is still echoing through time.